What's up, ladies and germs? Today we got another episode of CAR TAWK. That's TAWK for the day. What's going on? My name is Brian. I hope everybody's having a great day today. Today I'm going to be doing a really super cool episode about Russia and the United States. This is something that is any news channel you turn on, there's going to be something about Russia, there's going to be something about collusion, there's going to be something about the Trump and his administration, and there's probably going to be something about Vladimir Putin in some way, shape, or form. You cannot escape this consistent news barrage about Russia, how they meddled in our elections, and basically that they're trying to undermine democracy in America, which is actually very true. But why? What reasons do they have for this? And what is the little bit of history of Russia for what reasons they have, and why is Vladimir Putin so almost friendly with Trump and so hateful towards Clinton? And why did he want Trump to win so badly? Why did he want Clinton to lose so badly? Okay, so a quick backstory on Russia, just in case you don't already know. Russia is the largest country in the world. It covers 11 different time zones. Compare that to America. Russia covers 11 different time zones. That's massive. It was called the Third Rome because Russia adopted Orthodox Christianity from the Byzantine Empire. Now, the Byzantine Empire was an empire that lasted well over 1,000 years, and they ended up, of course, like any empire before them and after them, to be honest with you, ended up falling. It's just what happens with empires. They rise and they fall. Some take longer than others. The great ones last very long periods of time. The Byzantine Empire was a great empire, but it did fall, not before influencing much of the world, the inhabited world, and not before influencing the Russian Empire. Russians were also overrun by the Mongols, like much of Asia and the Middle East during the Dark Ages of what we know them as. They didn't fare very well. They were kind of splintered into different tributaries to what's called the Golden Horde, one of the Mongol entities that would basically make sure that there wasn't going to be holding very much power in Russia. The power belonged to the Mongols, and to make sure of that, they would take offerings from the Russians. This happened for many years until the Mongols were finally pushed out after many years, and Russia became an empire. Russia was, I believe it was the third largest empire in history and stretched from Poland to Alaska at one point. They conquered many different lands, many different areas. This is a very important thing to remember because Russia was a massive empire and conquered many different places. So nowadays we hear about Crimea and how Russia has taken over a part of Ukraine. Well, Russia used to own or rule over Crimea and Ukraine, to be perfectly honest with you. And there's always been a lot of infighting between Russia and Ukraine over the years. So Russia believes that Crimea is their property, is their land. It is, you could argue, not for religious reasons, but it's almost like saying Palestinians want their land from Israel, and Israel says they want their land from Palestine. It's similar on the level that one country believes it is their land and another country believes it is their land. And so this goes on throughout history. And this is currently a reason why Russia did annex the Crimean Peninsula, because they never thought that it was Ukraine's in the first place. Now, the Russian Empire was very successful, but it was also ruled on basically peasant, or by today's standards, we would just call it slave labor. And the overall people really weren't happy with this being led by a king, and things that kind of worked in Western Europe, the people were really getting sick of in Russia. They formed what are called Soviets, which literally means councils of people in different parts of Russia that decided to say, you know what, we're going to rule our own country our own way, and we are going to create a socialist country. The people rule here. We're not having, just because you're rich or you have a famous last name or you're a king or a queen or have, popular, famous relatives, doesn't mean you deserve to rule. They believe that the people deserve the rule, or the peasants or the working class should be the ones to rule, not the capitalists or the elite class. The Soviet Union was then created. The Soviet Union was a world superpower, and during the Cold War, really was the United States against the Soviet Union, where who can win the space race, who can win the nuclear arms race, who can win the country that has the largest GDP. Russia was the second largest economy in the world at that time, only bested by the United States. Yet they had a larger nuclear stockpile and a larger standing military. So it was almost mutually assured destruction between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Cold War lasted for a very long time, lasting all the way until 1991, upon which the Soviet Union dissolved and lost a lot of the land that they had gained. Now, granted, countries like Belarus and countries that were part of the Soviet bloc ended up becoming their own countries again. But the Soviet Union and Russia in general believed that these countries were part of Russia. Russia was the largest Soviet of all the other countries, and they believed that this land was rightfully theirs. This leads to Vladimir Putin, who really has caused some economic stability, which was rare in Russia after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Putin has high stability in this country simply because he is able to raise things such as wages and such as opportunities, and people in Russia love him for it, which, you know what, is true in many countries. If you're doing well for your country, many of your people are going to look over some things and be happy with where they're at, and that's kind of where Russia's at right now. Putin doesn't do everything right, and he definitely can be corrupt, but the people don't care as long as their lives are getting better, which compared to 1991, when there was major shortages of food and supplies, now that is not the case anymore. Russia is home to many billionaires, actually. Now, this wasn't always the case. Before Putin gained a complete grip of Russia, he was not the sole leader of the country. And actually, in 2011, in December, there were major protests to take him out of power because of how corrupt he was. People knew this in Russia, and a lot of people wanted him out. A very vocal supporter of this theory was Hillary Clinton in 2011, and she had no issue going live and letting the world and Russia know that Putin is soulless, and he's not a good leader, and he's very corrupt. Russians agreed with her, actually. Quite a few Russians did. And regardless of what Hillary says, they thought this even without her. But Putin blamed everything on Hillary. And this leads to the 2016 election, where Putin seemed to be really buddy-buddy with Trump and have a true hatred for Hillary. Why? Because Hillary in 2011 said some pretty nasty things about Putin, which truthfully were right in many instances. But Putin never forgets these things. He holds grudges that will last his entire life. He's been doing this since he was in the KGB. And with Hillary, he held that grudge, and he would do anything in his power to bring her down. What was the best way for Putin to bring down Hillary? Well, why not meddle in America's elections and personally take her down? The Russians managed to do something that has never been done before in American political history, and that was use the internet to basically sway decision-making and sway opinions in America by stretching at the things that hold democracy together. How did they do that? Well, they used Facebook, they used social media, and they had used a lot of bots, and they used a lot of advertising money to advertise things that got people riled up. For instance, the Russians would purchase ads on websites like social media sites like Facebook, and they know based on their demographics who clicks on what. So many white Americans will be clicking on things for Blue Lives Matter because of the whole Black Lives Matter protests. And a lot of white Americans didn't really agree with Black Lives Matter. They would say all lives matter, but they weren't really seeing the argument for Black Lives Matter for what it was. They were seeing it from their lens. And so Russians would flip those two things. They knew white people were clicking on Blue Lives Matter, so the white people would see advertisements for Black Lives Matter. And black people would see advertisements for Blue Lives Matter. So Russia is really using all the positive things about diversity in America against each other. And it's working very well, actually. It's a very divisive time in America right now. Russia has done a great job. I think that Russia had a lot to do with Donald Trump winning the election. He definitely had a lot of his fans, but Russia definitely helped create that fighting spirit between Democrats and Republicans and made people go really far left and really far right, unfortunately. As I said in previous episodes, America's at its best when it's the most centrist, and the more far apart the factions, I guess you can call them, are, the more problems we're going to have in this country. Now, I have to say, I think that Putin believes Trump will separate America more than Hillary, which Trump, I believe, is doing. And I think that that's exactly what Putin wants. All Putin really, really, really wants is Russia to retain its former glory of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. He wants to reconquer all of the land. He wants to influence Western nations. And he wants Russia to be on the same stage and the same scale as America when it comes to entertainment, sports, politics. He wants Russia to win at everything. And Putin is doing a very good job right now. How the heck do we stop him? Well, as I said before, you gotta vote. If you have an opinion, you've got to vote. You have to be centrist. And please, people, don't believe everything you read, because too many people believe what they see in the media and on social media, unfortunately, and they believe it. And that's what Russia wants. The Russians want you to believe the ridiculous stories and that we're all divided when we're really not. We're the best country in the world when we're unified, and Russia knows that. And so they want to do everything in their power to make us, not unified. Thanks a lot for listening to another episode of CAR TAWK. That's TAWK for the day. I can't wait to do some more episodes in the future. Thanks a lot for your time, and shoot me a message or two. Have a great day.